Good evening and welcome to this digitally enabled online meeting of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth held on Monday, November 15th, 2021. I'm Mayor Todd Kasenberg and I'll call this meeting to order. I ask the clerk to note our starting time for the minutes as 7 p.m. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe peoples. We wish to recognize the long history of Indigenous peoples in Canada and show our respect to them today. We recognize their stewardship of the land. May we all live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship. Tonight's meeting is being streamed live on the Municipality of North Perth YouTube channel and will be available there after the meeting as an archived video. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded and their voice, image, and comments will form part of the live stream. The chair and/or the clerk have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances where deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. Thank you. Welcome to those joining us via the YouTube channel. Welcome to councillors, staff, and delegates who will participate in this meeting tonight. I invite your decorum over the course of the meeting. Let's move then to item 2.1 of our agenda pertaining to pecuniary interest. For the benefit of those unfamiliar with our council practices, provincial legislation requires councillors with a potential pecuniary or financial interest in any item at the council table to declare this interest and to remove her or himself from discussions and voting on the item. In accordance with recommended protocol, at this time, I invite all councillors with perceived pecuniary interest, including those who have declared already in writing, to verbally advise the chair in public session and to submit documentation to this effect in writing to the clerk if not already done. Councillors are further reminded that should a potential conflict arise during the meeting, they may so declare and act in a priority manner at any point in the meeting. We begin this evening alphabetically with Councillor Anstedt, who has advised ahead of time. Welcome, Councillor Anstedt. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. Through you this evening, I'd like to declare a pecuniary interest on item 5.5.1, the accounts, specifically the daycare accounts, as my son attends the St. Mary's Daycare, and also on item 13.1, the confirmatory bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anstedt. Next up is Councillor Behrens. Welcome, Councillor Behrens. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. Good evening, Council. This evening, I will declare a conflict on 4.3, the Hood Drain. I believe it's a public meeting. 5.5.1, the accounts, specifically the daycare accounts, as I have grandchildren attending the North Perth Spinrite Child and Family Center, as well as programming. And subsequent to that, 13.1, the confirmatory bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Behrens. And Deputy Mayor Kellum next. Welcome.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor Kasenberg, I would also like to declare pecuniary interest on items 5.5.1, specifically Perth Metals. The accounts as my mother and father-in-law are tenants, as well the daycare accounts as my grandson attends the St. Mary's Daycare Center, and supplementary to the 13.1 confirmatory bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councillors who have not indicated ahead of time but wish to make a declaration at this time? We do so now. We're not seeing any, I don't think. The clerk is shaking her head, so that's a good sign. So we can move forward. Thank you. To explain our virtual processes tonight, I will be systematically calling on councillors to seek consent as movers and seconders to the various resolutions and bylaws that will be put before us. I'll do this to some degree alphabetically. Should a councillor not wish to respond to the request, they may say so, and I will move to the next name on the alphabetical list. Regarding speaking to our business, councillors tonight will identify themselves through our conferencing technologies chat function. The clerk is assisting me tonight in maintaining the speaking order from that source. Councillors are allowed on their turn to deliver a primary question or comment and may make one supplemental without intervention from me. We will follow speaking order carefully, and any councillor wishing to have a second say beyond that first and second, we'll have to indicate again and go to the bottom of the list. Now, this is a normal process consistent with Robert's Rules of Order. Councillors are reminded that if I believe you're not audible, I will let you know, and we will try to troubleshoot that for you. I also invite all to maintain a mute state in the web conference until I have called upon you for a verbal reaction and recognize you. Should any of your votes not show up in eScribe, I will call on you when things seem stalled to register a manual vote. At that time, take yourself off mute, answer yes or no on the motion, then return to mute. That brings us to item point 2 of our agenda. I have a motion before me for the adoption of the agenda of tonight's meeting that reads as follows, that the agenda for tonight's meeting be approved. Why don't we start tonight with Councillor Richardson? Will you serve as our mover for that?
I will gladly move that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Rothwell, will you serve as our seconder for that?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. The clerk has an unusual view on the screen in the council chambers, so she might need to advise me what to say at points tonight. That brings us to item 3 on our agenda, the so-called consent agenda. These items are placed on our agenda because they are believed to be non-contentious, yet they require either council's recognition and or action. Grouping them expedites our business. However, any councillor wishing to extract an item from the consent agenda for discussion, debate, and individual action may do so. There are 3 items tonight on our consent agenda, including the minutes of our last regular council meeting. Councillors, do any of you have a desire to extract any of these items or ask for corrections to the council minutes at this time? We're not seeing any indication of that, so let's move to the resolution for this. Proposed for our consideration that consent items 3.1 to 3.3 be received for information, and the November 8th minutes of the regular council meeting and November 10th, 2021 special council meeting minutes be adopted. Councillor Snyder, can I call on you to serve as our mover for that one?
Yes, I'll move that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Andreessen, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I'll second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this one? Let's have that vote. Okay. Okay, so are you able to trigger the vote, Pat? Not yet. Okay, so I think there might be a manual vote required here based on some technical problems that the clerk is facing in the chamber. So are there any opposed to this motion? Oh, we got it up and running. There we go. So please vote now. And that is carried. Thank you. At this time, then, it's proposed that we move to agenda item number 4. This evening, we have matters that prompt us to conduct 3 public meetings. 2 are related to land planning matters, and 1 is related to drain matters. To facilitate the public meetings, plural, sorry, make sure that we're doing 3. We must temporarily adjourn from our regular council meeting. I have before me a resolution to make that happen. It reads as follows. That the Council of the Municipality of North Perth adjourns at 7:10 p.m. for the purpose of public meetings under the Planning Act and under the Drainage Act concerning the following. 1, application for a zoning bylaw amendment by Eli and Elmina Ebersol. 2, application for a zoning bylaw amendment by Garrett's Ag Service. And 3, hood number 1, municipal drain. Councillor Anstead, can I call on you to be our mover for this?
Yes, I would move that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Barons, I know you've declared, but for a little bit later, right? I don't think this is a problem. So would you like to be the seconder for this one?
Actually, it probably is a problem since it is a public meeting, so I will decline. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. All right. Councillor Duncan, would you like to be our seconder for this one?
I can second that.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate? We're not seeing any, so seeing none, let's have that vote. So that is carried. Thank you, Council. At this time, we are temporarily adjourned. Means I can turn my attention to the public meetings, and perhaps during this period, the clerk will have some opportunity to see if that's a problem with the IT. If Simon's available, maybe he could be helpful as well. First up is a public meeting pursuant to the Planning Act to deal with an application for an amendment to the North Perth zoning bylaw submitted by Bruce Wilk on behalf of Eli and Almina Ebersol. Welcome to those who have come tonight to participate in this public meeting. Correspondence, reports, and comments received regarding this application will be considered by Council. Those in attendance remotely wishing to make comment concerning this application will be given an opportunity to do so. Anyone wishing to appeal Council's decision must make verbal submission during this public meeting or have made a written submission to Council. Those who want to receive notice of the municipality's decision concerning this application must notify the clerk by email or telephone, giving their mailing address and telephone number. This time, I'm going to call for a summary of this application for an amendment, and that will be given by North Perth planner with the County of Perth, Sean Yilmaz. Mr. Yilmaz, welcome.
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor Kaysenberg, members of North Perth Council. We have an application submitted which seeks to amend the zoning of the subject lands to permit the establishment and construction of a storage building which will contain gardening equipment and supplies. The building is proposed to be approximately 300 square meters or 3,200 square feet in size. Now, the subject lands are within the Natural Resource Environment designation of the County of Perth official plan and is within the Natural Resource Environment 2 zone, or the NRE2 zone of the North Perth zoning bylaw. This zoning includes restrictions which do not permit any new buildings or structures from establishing. As such, an amendment is needed to allow the proposed storage building on the subject lands. If approved, the proposed building would ultimately support a market garden operation conducted on the property. The applicant has noted that over the past several years, the property has been prepared to function as a market garden, as an abundance of muck soil was recently removed from the property, providing conditions favorable for a market garden. Additionally, an approximately 20-acre pond has been constructed with the intention of using this feature as irrigation for the gardens. A letter from the applicant was included and attached to the staff report. Now, although the building is not currently permitted in the NRE2 zone, a review of the guiding policies has determined that the proposal is consistent with both the provincial policy statement and the County of Perth official plan. The subject lands are located within a rural area and have been identified as having features containing areas of environmental significance with a large portion of the property noted to flood. Section 2.1 of the provincial policy statement, or the PPS, speaks to natural heritage and requires natural heritage features and areas to be protected for the long term, with development and site alteration not permitted unless it has been demonstrated that there'll be no negative impacts on the natural features or their ecological functions. Further, Section 3.1, which speaks to natural hazards, restricts development in areas considered to contain hazardous lands However, development may be permitted in those portions of lands where the effect and risk to public safety are minor, could be mitigated in accordance with provincial standards, and where these standards are demonstrated and achieved. Now, this includes that the development and site alteration is carried out in accordance with floodproofing standards, protection work standards, and access standards, that vehicles and people have a way of safely entering and exiting the area during times of flooding, erosion, and other emergencies, and new hazards are not created and existing hazards are not aggravated. And additionally, that there is no adverse environmental impact. The entirety of the property is regulated by the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority, as the property contains flood hazards. Maitland Valley Conservation Authority, also known as the MVCA, and the applicant have had several discussions regarding the proposed shed. The MVCA have reviewed the proposal and are supportive, provided a minimum floor elevation is achieved and a damp flood-proof building is used. Permit from the MVCA is required prior to the issuance of a building permit, at which point confirmation of the of the requirements I just noted will be provided. The MVCA's comments were also attached to the staff report. As a result of the environmentally sensitive features of the site, the lands are within the Natural Resource and Environment designation of the County of Perth official plan. A floodplain is not identified on these lands. However, section 11.5.8 of the official plan states that the Natural Resource Environment designation includes environmentally sensitive areas, groundwater recharge and discharge areas, and other natural resource areas that have been designated for environmental protection purposes. Development and site alteration may be permitted on such lands, provided that such development will not have a negative impact. An environmental impact study or other appropriate study is required in order to assess the impact of the development. As I previously noted, the MVCA are supportive of the proposal and have been involved in the discussion with the applicant. As such, staff are of the opinion that the proposed amendment is consistent with the provincial policy statement and the County of Perth official plan. The location on the subject lands has been proposed for the structure, which is within close proximity to the existing driveway and has been reviewed by the MVCA. If the zoning bylaw amendment is approved, the amendment includes site-specific provisions and regulations, which will guide the building to this location on the site and will limit the permitted buildings to the storage shed only. As such, it is staff's recommendation that council approve the application for a zoning bylaw amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yilmaz. At this time, can I ask you as well, Mr. Yilmaz, to speak to the notice of public meeting details?
Yes, absolutely. So a notice was provided and it was sent to all property owners within 120 meters of the property, as well as a site was posted 20 days prior to this public meeting. And the agencies were also notified as well.
Thank you. And the next up then is any information about correspondence, comments, and other reports received beyond the one that we've already noted from MVCA.
I have not received any other correspondence other than the ones that were contained in the report from the MVCA.
Thank you. Clerk Pertholz, are you aware of any other additional correspondence? Okay, so the Clerk's Department of North Perth is also not aware of any further correspondence, comments, or reports that have been received in this matter to date. At this time, then, we turn to those who have come for the purposes of offering comment. First, I invite any of those who are in support of the application, other than the applicant. This is your opportunity to speak to this council and in this public meeting. Is there anyone that we are aware of, Clerk Bertholz, who wishes to avail themselves of that opportunity at this time? She's indicating no, council. Next up then is any who are in opposition to the application and who have attended tonight. Again, Clerk Bertholz, are we aware of any who wish to speak in opposition to this application? Her answer is no. And finally, there is an opportunity, should it be desired, for the applicant or the applicant's agent to speak. I notice that Mr. Wilkin is with us. Mr. Wilkin, if you wish to speak, you're welcome to at this time.
Can you hear me?
We certainly can.
Okay, great. No, I have nothing to add. Sean has pretty well covered everything that we've covered concerning the Conservation Authority and all that type of information. So I think everything's in front of council right now.
Great.
Thank you.
And nice to hear from you, Mr. Wilkin. All right, council, do you have any comments or questions that you would wish to ask about this matter? You seeing anything, Clerk Fairfields? Okay. Okay, we are not seeing any indication or expression of interest from council with regards to questions or comments about this application. So I will conclude this public meeting with the following notice. Notice of the decision made by council will be given in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. The council's decision is subject to appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. And with that, we can bring that first of 3 public meetings to a close. Next, similar matter, zoning bylaw amendment. So again, welcome to those who have joined us for the purpose of this public meeting. This is a statutory public meeting pursuant to the Ontario Planning Act to deal with an application for an amendment to the North Perth zoning bylaw submitted by Garrett's Ag Service. Correspondence, reports, and comments received regarding this application will be considered by council. Those in attendance remotely wishing to make a comment concerning this application will be given an opportunity to do so. Anyone wishing to appeal council's decision must make verbal submission during this public meeting or have made a written submission to council. Those who want to receive notice of the municipality's decision concerning this application must notify the clerk by email or telephone, giving their mailing address and telephone number. At this time in the public meeting, I'll call on Mr. Yilmaz again from the County of Perth, who works on North Perth planning files, to give us a summary of this application and amendment. Welcome back, Mr. Yilmaz.
Thank you again, Mayor Kasenberg. This application for a zoning bylaw amendment has been submitted by Baker Planning Group on behalf of the property owners, which is Garrett's Ag Service. The proposed amendment is requested to permit the expansion of an existing farm-related repair, welding, and service shop. The shop is currently operating as a secondary farm occupation, and the rezoning would place a small area where the current operation is into the agricultural commercial industrial zone, or the ACM zone. This would allow the operation to operate as an agriculturally related industrial operation and will allow the existing operations to expand, which would include the construction of a new 1,040 square meter or 11,000 square foot building on the subject property. The existing business provides parts required for dairy operations and are typically repaired on the site and then delivered to the customer. The business also provides for on-site repairs, traveling to the specific dairy operation to address machines and equipment that require services. More recently, the business offers the installation of gates and stables for livestock. A planning justification report prepared by Baker Planning Group has been submitted with the application in support of the proposed development and was attached to the staff report. Ms. Baker is also here to provide a presentation regarding the proposal and can expand a bit more on the proposal and operation. The zoning bylaw amendment application is proposing to rezone a 2-acre portion of the property that includes 2 existing buildings on the site, which will continue to function as part of this operation, as well as additional lands to accommodate the proposed new building. Conceptual site plan is also prepared and was attached to the staff report. The subject property has approximately 298 meters or 977 feet of frontage along Perth Line 86 and a lot area of approximately 20.2 hectares or 50 acres. The property contains farm fields, 2 existing commercial buildings, and a farm dwelling. The farm dwelling is not proposed to be located within the ACM zone portion of the property. The provincial policy statement promotes the diversification of the economic base and employment opportunities of rural and agricultural areas through supporting the growth of goods and services. Permitted uses within prime agricultural areas include agricultural uses, agriculturally related uses, and on-farm diversified uses. The existing secondary farm occupation and the proposed expansion are considered an agriculturally related use and are defined in the provincial policy statement as those farm-related commercial and farm-related industrial uses that are directly related to farm operations in the area, support agriculture, benefit from being in close proximity to farm operations, and provide direct products and or services to farm operations as a primary operation. The County of Perth official plan permit farm-related commercial and farm-related industrial uses. Section 5.4 provides permitted uses and includes small-scale commercial and industrial activities that are primarily and directly related to agriculture and necessary in proximity to farm operations. Garrett's Ag Service operations include services and servicing for a customer base that includes clients from the agricultural communities in the immediate and surrounding area where the operation is, and its clients both benefit from its close proximity. Section 5.5.10 of the County of Perth official plan also provides additional criteria with regard to farm-related commercial and industrial activities. This has been addressed in detail in both the staff report and the planning justification report by Baker Planning Group. However, to summarize, a relatively small portion of the overall property will be used for the farm-related use. The applicants have requested to rezone 2 acres of the property. The site-specific zoning includes reduced provisions, which would contribute to avoiding unnecessary farmland from being included in the use. At this time, no conflicts or concerns have been noted to the municipality with regard to the existing operation. The proposed expansion is also no closer to any surrounding livestock facility than the existing buildings, except for the livestock facility to the east. However, the proposed building does comply with the required minimum distance separation setbacks. The municipality is satisfied that the intent of Section 5.5.10 of the County of Perth official plan has been satisfied, and therefore the proposed amendment conforms to the County of Perth official plan. The zoning bylaw amendment will rezone the lands to the ACM-22 zone, which will exclusively permit a farm equipment service establishment, a farm-related welding establishment, and a farm-related storage and warehousing establishment, as well as accessory uses, including an accessory office. While the site-specific provisions will also include a reduced rear yard setback from 7.5 meters to 6 meters, an increased permitted lot coverage from 35% to 42%, and permission for the loading space to be located in the front and exterior side yard where this is not normally permitted. The proposal will meet all other provisions of the ACM zone, including servicing requirements and parking requirements. The proposed expansion of the existing farm-related use, including the establishment of the new building, meets the intent of the provincial policy statement and conforms to the County of Perth official plan. If the zoning bylaw amendment is approved, site plan approval will also be required prior to the issuance of a building permit. As such, it is staff's recommendation at this time that council approve the application for a zoning bylaw amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gilnaz. Could you provide us with both notice of public meeting details and any information about correspondence, comments, or reports that you have received to date?
Yes, so notice was again provided through regular mail to all property owners within 120 meters of the property, and a site was posted, excuse me, and a sign was posted on the property 20 days prior to this public meeting as per the Planning Act requirements. Additionally, notice was sent to the agencies required as well. I don't believe at this time any correspondence has been received. My end.
Thank you, Mr. Yilmaz. And in the chamber, the clerk is advising me that she also has not received any comments or correspondence pertaining to this matter. And that allows us then to turn to the opportunity for the public to offer comments. First, we invite those who are in support of the application, other than the applicant, to speak should they wish to do so. Clerk Herfeldt, are we aware of anyone who is registered for that purpose who is attending this meeting today? We are not, I'm told. Second, then we can hear from those who are in opposition to the application. Clerk Herfeldt, are we aware of anyone? So I'm told that we are not aware of any. And at this time, then we can turn the floor to the applicant or the applicant's agent. I believe Ms. Caroline Baker is with us. Ms. Baker, if you wish to make brief comments.
Yes, good evening. Thank you. I did have a brief presentation, if it would be acceptable if I did share screen.
Yes, the clerk, I believe, has enabled that for you, we hope.
Perfect. So I'll just share screen and then you can let me know when you see it and I can play the slideshow.
And we can see this at this time. Yeah.
Perfect. Yes, as mentioned, my name is Caroline Baker from Baker Planning Group. I represent the owners with respect to the zone change application before you this evening for statutory public meeting. Mr. Yilmaz provided an excellent and thorough presentation, so I'll try not to duplicate the comments he has provided. As noted, the zone change application applies to a small portion, approximately 0.8 hectares of land on the subject property in the southeast corner towards the intersection of Perth Line 86 and Road 152. I did just want to put this aerial photography up just to demonstrate the existing cluster on the southeast corner, which includes the existing farm-related dwelling in which the owners live, as well as their two existing buildings that they use for their agriculturally related business. Just going to switch slides here. As Mr. Yilmaz noted, there is an existing secondary farm operation on the property. And these are a few photos from the existing operation. And what you'll see on the left-hand side is close to Road 152. And this is where there is exterior storage. He's currently using this portion of the property for that purpose. The photos on the right-hand side are the inside of the existing building where you'll see the welding and repair that occurs. And Mr. Yilmaz was certainly correct. The owners currently assist area dairy livestock operations as a welding and fabrication. They estimate, approximately 75% of their work is repairs and then delivered to their customers, and 25% would be the fabrication of new materials. They also do supply dairy equipment. That's where you'll see the outdoor storage that they currently have. Of course, business is expanding, and with that, they wanted to ensure that they had the appropriate zoning to facilitate an expansion on the property. And what you'll see before you is the conceptual site plan. And I'm not sure if you can see my mouse, but there's two existing buildings in this location at 374 square meters and 500 square meters, as well as an existing driveway from Road 152. This is planned to be continued in that location, and a new driveway is proposed to the north to the new shop area. And really this is to serve a few functions. First and foremost is to bring that exterior storage indoors, certainly better for the equipment to be sheltered from the elements. Also to bring the office within their buildings. I mean, right now their office is in their residence, and they'd like to move that more in the cluster of their shop area. We've also shown on this conceptual site plan the septic bed to service the expansion. And as noted by Mr. Yilmaz, there are 3 site-specific zoning provisions, really with the overall intent to minimize the amount of land being rezoned from agricultural to ACM. So this included a reduced rear yard to allow loading along Road 152 and lot coverage. I would note in this concept an additional 7 parking spaces can be accommodated for a total of 25 off-street parking spaces, which certainly exceeds the requirement in the zoning bylaw for the proposed use. As part of the zone change application, we did author a planning justification report supporting the zone change. And to provide a brief summary of the conclusions, the zone change will allow the expansion of an existing business to provide service that is responsive and supportive of local farming operations. We would concur with Mr. Yilmaz that the zone change is consistent with provincial policy and the county official plan for agricultural related uses. And as noted, it has been attempted to minimize the land area required for the business to maintain the site primarily as an agricultural property. In our opinion, the development is compatible with the surrounding agricultural character, with no new noise or emissions anticipated, and it does comply with the minimum distance separation Formula 1. As noted, it complies with the provisions of the ACM zone, save and except for those provisions proposed to minimize the amount of land required. That does conclude my presentation, but certainly would be happy to answer any questions or further discussion.
Thank you, Baker. Let's turn to council then and see if there are questions or comments that councillors would like to make at this time. Are we seeing anything? We're not seeing any indication. Oh, Councillor Rothwell. Thank you, Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks, Mayor Todd, and thank you, Sean, for your presentation, as well as Caroline Baker for your presentation. My question is if the proposal also includes, or has there been discussion regarding any requirement for fire protection in terms of a reservoir on this site based on the size of the proposed expansion? Thank you.
Maybe is it all right, Sean, if we turn to Ms. Baker on this one?
Sure.
Ms. Baker.
Thank you. Through the mayor to Councillor Rothwell. My understanding is that site plan approval will certainly be required should the zone change be approved. And certainly there is opportunity within the conceptual site plan, should it be necessary from the North Perth Fire Department to include a reservoir for firefighting purposes.
Thank you, Ms. Baker. Mr. Yilmaz, any further comment, or does that wrap that up?
Yes, no, that pretty much sums it up. But just to also note that this proposal was circulated and there was no immediate concerns from the fire department. But as Caroline has mentioned, this would be subject to site plan approval, at which time it will be reviewed again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Further questions or comments? Okay, we're not seeing any, so I will wrap up this public meeting with the usual comments. Notice of the decision will be given in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. The Council's decision is subject to appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. And with that, we bring to a close that public meeting. Thank you for those who participated so far. Next up, we are considering the report for the Hood number 1 municipal drain. Again, this is a public meeting for the purposes of considering a drainage report. A big welcome to those who are attending for the purposes of this public meeting, including any assessed landowners who've asked to participate or to at least observe. At this time, we will hear from the engineer. GM Blue Plan Engineering has prepared this report, and I believe we have Mr. Ash is on the line from GM Blue Plan to present this report. Mr. Ash, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Kaysenberg, and good evening, Council. Tonight we are considering, as the Mayor has mentioned, report for the Hood number 1 municipal drain. For those of you who may not be aware, well, it's on your screen. This is a drainage system that serves about 50% of Atwood, mainly in the northeast corner. This drain actually was originally installed in 1944, and subsequently it was improved again in 1970. My records indicate, however, there's been no further work done since 1970. And as well, we also discovered that the assessment schedule that was prepared in 1970 is still the one that is in use. So as council can imagine, the watershed has changed significantly since 1970. There's been a lot of severances and rezonings and that sort of thing. So that became one of the issues with this particular drain that we encountered right off the bat. Now I should back up and say that this drain was originally sent to us for the purposes of providing a proper outlet to the Dalmitch subdivision, which is shown in your drawing there on the east side of the catchment area. As those of you who live out there are aware, it's well under construction already. I believe phase 1 is done. And the stormwater pond that they built was designed to discharge into this municipal drain. There was a concern during the planning of this subdivision that the drain was not sufficient in its current form to accept the discharge from that stormwater pond. And therefore, the county made a condition of improvement of the Hood drain as one of the conditions of the draft plan approval was the improvement of the Hood drain. That's why we ended up being appointed to work on this, because we're also the designers of the subdivision too. So we did have a site meeting out there earlier this year. It was actually in June, and we had fairly good turnout. A number of the landowners, and particularly the ones that are most impacted by the drain, those that are north of Monument Road in that area, pretty much all attended. Subsequent to that, we did a lot of analysis on this drain to determine whether it did in fact have capacity for the stormwater pond as it's set today and whether it actually needed improvement. We ended up determining that no, in fact, it doesn't really need any improvement. It is sufficient as it sits to take the discharge. In fact, the stormwater pond is specifically designed to collect and slow the peak runoff from the development areas. So in fact, there is likely to be less peak flow rate in this drain after development than there is before development. However, we did determine that there were certain minor upgrades that needed to be done to this drain. In particularly, there's 2 culverts in the field directly north of Monument Road. They are in poor condition, and as well, they sit a little bit above the bottom of the ditch. So we felt that they should be replaced and set down in at the bottom so that they would properly flow. The ditch also needs cleaned out pretty much throughout its whole length. And some of the landowners identified quite correctly that there's ongoing erosion at some of the corners that you can see on the map there, where the drain takes a 90-degree turn, it's eroding away. So we did feel that it needed some erosion control measures placed in those areas. The last part of this job entailed recalculating the watershed, and by that I mean determining who is actually in the watershed today and how much of a share of it that they have. And this current map on your screen, you can see that the Hood drain actually is divided into 3 separate sub-watersheds. There is the Main Street drain, the King Street drain, and I believe it's called the Queen Street Relief drain. Some of these, well, we believe they all exist still. As to exactly what condition they're in, that may be somewhat questionable, but we were not appointed to improve those sub-watershed drains, so we didn't really look at that. What we did do, however, is account for all of the properties in the various sub-watersheds and the overall watershed as a whole, and provided the municipality with a new maintenance schedule that encompassed every property within this. That maintenance schedule, of course, as council is aware, is for any future costs, so they can be apportioned out properly throughout the watershed. So the drainage area for this, as I mentioned, it's about 51 hectares in size, and it's mainly residential throughout, although there is some agricultural areas on the north end. We did determine that the total cost of the work was a relatively low amount, around 42,800 or 43,000 rounded. The bulk of this work is being assessed directly to Dalmich Holdings, the subdivider. About 70% of that cost comes right off the top and is assessed to them. The remainder of that cost is cost that we felt was attributed to the rest or the entire watershed, things that needed to be done anyhow. And so, as I mentioned, the clean out of the existing ditch, the erosion protection, and the development of the new maintenance schedule. Those are items that should be done whether this subdivision had been developed or not. So those amounts, entailing about 13,000, were assessed out to the watershed as a whole. As council can see, if you have a copy of the report, the assessment schedule for construction is included in Appendix A of that report. It's fairly lengthy, but most assessments are relatively small, less than $50. There are a few larger ones, of course, where people own larger properties. And then in Appendix B, we provided the various maintenance schedules, which are divided up by the watershed as a whole, and then each sub-watershed individually. That way, if the municipality has to do work on any of those drain sections in the future, they can apportion that cost out appropriately. That is sort of a summary of how we got here and where we're at today. And I guess I would be willing to take any questions from council or any members of the public. I should mention that we do not expect construction to actually get underway on this until the spring. And there is only, minor amounts of construction to happen anyway. So it's not a very big or long project.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ash. At this time, we would entertain questions from the assessed landowners and or council. I have to admit that I was frantically searching the report to see if my residence was there because it was awfully close. It doesn't seem that my residence is there. Anyway, please, if we have questions or comments at this time, do we have any assessed landowners who wish to speak? Clerk Fairfield, let's start. Okay, so Mr. and Mrs. Kirky have joined us tonight. Mr. and Mrs. Kirky, do you have questions or comments you'd like to make in this public meeting pertaining to this trip? Mr. and Mrs. Kirky, can you confirm that you're hearing me and that you do not have questions, or if you have them, bring them forward, please? Okay. We're not sure if they're still with us, actually. We're just having a quick peek here. Yeah, it doesn't seem like they're still with us. They had registered ahead of time. So we want to make sure that if they had comments to make, that those comments were brought forward. Anyone else on council wishing to make a comment or ask a question at this point in time? Are we seeing anything? We're not seeing anything at this time. All right, so at this time then we can move to adjournment of this meeting. We have not seen withdrawal or significant concerns raised at this point. And so I will suggest that this meeting is now adjourned. All right, I'm going to bring forward, council, resolution to bring us back into our regular council meeting. I will note that the parties who have stayed through the public meeting and who have presented or have vested interest may stay on our call until we've considered the business that lies ahead in regular council meeting, but first we have to get there. So I have a resolution for consideration at the public meetings for the purpose of Planning Act applications and a municipal drain report are now adjourned at 7:51 p.m. And the council reconvenes into regular open council. Deputy Mayor Callum, can I call on you to be our mover for this one?
Yes, I'll make that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Johnston, will you be our seconder?
Yes, I would second that.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. We are returned to regular session meeting of council, and now we have several items of business related to what we have received as information in our public information session. So let's begin with item 4.1. This is the matter pertaining to the property in Elma Ward. I have a resolution and a bylaw for consideration. The resolution reads that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approve the application for a zoning bylaw amendment affecting property described as Part Lot 31 and Part Lot 32, Concession 14, 5247 Line 66, Elma Ward, Municipality of North Perth. The proposal is consistent with the Provincial Policy Statement 2020, conforms to the policies of the County of Perth Official Plan, and meets the intent of the North Perth zoning bylaw. Can I call on Councillor Berns to serve as our mover for this one?
Yes, I will make that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And can I jump to Councillor Richardson to be our seconder?
I will second that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate? We're not seeing any, so let's have that vote. That is carried. Thank you. Next up is the associated bylaw. It reads as follows. Our enabling resolution for it is that bylaw number 99-2021, being a bylaw to amend the North Perth zoning bylaw number 6-ZB-1999 as amended, be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Councillor Rothwell, can I call on you to serve as our mover for this?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Seiler, will you be our seconder?
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate on that? Let's have that vote. Oh, did Councillor Rothwell have a comment or question?
Yes. Thanks, Mayor Todd. I just need confirmation from Planner Yilmaz. There was a revision on the Schedule A for this bylaw to correctly identify the provisions of the NRE 2. Oh, I
yes.
see it. I see it's up there. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Does that resolve your question, Councillor Rothwell?
Yes, it does. And I just didn't hear from Planner Yilmaz, so I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Are there any other questions or comments? Okay. Well, let's have that vote. Okay, and that one is carried. Thank you very much. Now we turn to item 4.2. This is the matter of property in the Wallace Ward. And the resolution reads as follows. The Council of the Municipality of North Perth approve the applications for a zoning bylaw amendment affecting property described as Part Lot 13, Concession 1, 5428 Perth Line 86, Wallace Ward in the Municipality of North Perth. The proposal is consistent with the Provincial Policy Statement 2020, conforms to the policies of the County of Perth Official Plan, and meets the intent of the North Perth zoning bylaw. Councillor Andreessen, will you serve as a mover for that?
Yes, I'll make that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Anstett, will you be our seconder?
Yes, I would second that motion. Thank you.
Thanks. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that's carried. Thank you. And for the bylaw, we have the enabling bylaw for this, which reads as follows. That bylaw number 111-2021 being a bylaw to amend the North Perth zoning bylaw number 6-ZB-1999 as amended, be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. I call on Councillor Behrens to be our mover for this one.
Yes, I will make that motion.
Thank you. And Councillor Duncan, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. Missing one. Councillor Johnston, are you still with us? What say you?
I'm in favor.
Thank you. With that, that's carried. Thank you. And now we turn to item 4.3. We note that Councillor Behrens had indicated that she would abstain for this for pecuniary interest concerns. For item 4.3, then we have three pieces, Council, for our consideration. First is a resolution that reads that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth will accept the Hood Number 1 Municipal Drain 2021 report dated September 7th, 2021, prepared by GM Blue Plan Engineering. Deputy Mayor Callum, will you serve as our mover for this one?
Yes, I will make that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Johnston, will you serve as our second?
Yes, I would second that.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote.
I'm in favor, Councillor Johnston here.
Thank you. So with Councillor Johnston's vote, that is carried. Thank you. Next is information about the Court of Revision. We have a resolution that reads that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth will hold the Court of Revision for the Hood Number 1 Municipal Drain 2021 on December 13th, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. And I call on Councillor Richardson to serve as our mover.
I will move that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Rothwell, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate on that one? Seeing none, let's have that vote.
Councillor Anstett, I'm in favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Anstett. And with that, that's carried. And now for the bylaw. Resolution reads as follows: that bylaw number 124-2021 being a bylaw to provide for a drainage works Hood Number 1 municipal drain be introduced, read, and considered read a first and second time. Ooh, almost got tripped up there. And be provisionally adopted. And that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I call on Councillor Seiler to be our mover for this one?
Yes, I'll move that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Andreessen, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I'll second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate, Council? Seeing none, let's have that. And that is carried. Thank you very much. Okay, that concludes our business related to public meetings, which allows us to move on to item 5. It's from departments and key staff. At this time, I'll invite those who stayed through for seeing our business completed on the land planning matters and drains. You may exit with gratitude for your participation. Now, first of all, item 5.1. We have no reports tonight from the CAO's department. That allows us to move down to 5.2 on our agenda, reports from the clerk's department. For item 5.2.1, council is asked to receive a report on an application for consent to sever related to lands in the Wallace Ward as brought forward by owner Burlett Farms Limited. Council is further asked to make a recommendation on this application to Perth County Council. I'll call on County of Perth finder Sean Yilmaz, who works on files related to North Perth, to explain the request on this matter. Mr. Yilmaz, welcome again.
Thank you, Mayor. We have the one application for consent, which seeks to sever a farm dwelling which has been deemed surplus to the farming operation of Burlett Farms Limited. The consent sketch illustrates, the consent sketch submitted with the application illustrates a proposed irregularly shaped severed lot with a lot frontage of approximately 17 meters or 55 feet along line 88 and a lot area of approximately 0.6 hectares or 1.5 acres. The proposed severed lot would contain an existing one-story farm dwelling with 2 sheds to be used as storage, a well, and a septic system with a weeping bed. An existing cedar hedge is located around the perimeter of the residential use and has been used to identify the proposed lot configuration. The consent application also includes a proposed easement over the retained farmland in favor of the severed residential lot. The easement, along with an agreement registered over the easement, would provide access to and maintenance of an overhead hydro line serving the severed residential lot. The proposed retained farmland would have a broken lot frontage of approximately 287 meters along line 88 and a total lot area of approximately 39.9 hectares or 98.6 acres. The proposed retained farm lot contains farmland and no buildings. The applicant, Burlett Farms Limited, currently operates several existing farm operations in Perth County, where the principal residence is located at 5711 and 5719 line 88, and the subject property is located at 5525 line 88. It is the opinion of staff that the proposed severed lot is the minimum size needed to accommodate the use and appropriate water and sewage services. An existing cedar hedge and tree line accessory to the residential use has historically provided a windbreak and separated the residential use from the farm operation. As noted, this tree line has assisted in determining the proposed lot configuration. Condition of consent has been included that will impose restrictions through a site-specific amendment to the North Perth zoning bylaw, which will prohibit any new permanent residential dwelling on the retained farmland. This amendment will also capture any deficiencies created as a result of the severance, including the deficient frontage requirement of the severed lot, which has only the 17 meters. Staff have no objection to the proposed consent to sever a surplus farm dwelling lot. Conditions of consent have been included to ensure appropriate access is provided to the retained lands, and an easement and access agreement are registered on title. It is staff's recommendation that North Perth Council recommends that the County of Perth Land Division Committee or its designate approve the application for a consent to sever a surplus farm dwelling severance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yilmaz. I'm being brought, the clerk is bringing to me the conditions that are associated with this particular application. They are lengthy. Any questions or first comments from council on this matter? Are we seeing anything, Clerk Fairfax? Not yet. Okay, so to council, I have a resolution that I'm going to ask your indulgence. Well, maybe I should read them because they weren't in the documentation tonight. So let's put them together here. I have are they in the report there? Yeah, let's pull them back. Great. Okay, so you can see the county report, council. There are 11 conditions that have been recommended in the county report. Those will attach to this resolution, but I'm asking your indulgence not to read all 11 of them, just to note that the ones in the report to the county, from the county, included in our resolution. So we have a resolution that reads as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth received the report entitled Application for Consent to Sever number B33-21 by Burlett Farms Limited, owner affecting lands described as Lot 16, Concession 4, Wallace Ward, Township of North Perth, 5525, line 88, dated November 15th, 2021, for information. And that council recommends the County of Perth Land Division Committee or its designate approve the application for consent to sever number 33-21, described as Lot 16, Concession 4, Wallace Ward, Township of North Perth, 5525, line 88, subject to the following conditions. There are 11. They are in the county report. And they are on the screen at this time for your viewing pleasure. Can I call on Councillor Anstett to be our mover for this one?
Yes, I would move that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Behrens, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I will second that motion. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, any discussion or debate on this one? Are we seeing anything for folks? Okay, so seeing none, then let's move to the vote. We are absent Councillor Behrens. What say you? Oh, she's up there now. Okay. Do we have everyone then? Okay, so that is carried. Thank you. Just wanted to make sure I was seeing things right. Next up then is item 5.2.2. Council is invited to adopt a bylaw that amends what I would call the taxi and motor vehicle for hire bylaw. The proposed bylaw adjusts a number of the rates proposed and used to be used, and staff has indicated that increasing costs of operation are the inherent rationale for this change. I think I'm going to turn to Kirk Bearfelds to review the matter for us verbally. Just let me set the AV settings so that we don't create a black hole.
Council, as noted in my report, I did meet with the taxi owners, Debbie Galbraith and James Cowan, before last Monday's council meeting. The taxi owners had requested the meeting to discuss the North Perth taxi rates. The rates have not been increased since June of 2015, and today the increased costs for gasoline, insurance, and the minimum wage has created financial challenges for taxi owners. During our discussions, however, I want council and the residents to know that both taxi owners struggled with increasing these rates and tried to be as fair as possible to their clients. You will note the previous rates on the screen or in your package were highlighted in red. We do have a typo. The one next to additional stop is to say $3 opposed to $4. Just for clarity. I did ask Ms. Galbraith and Mr. Cowan to join me tonight, but I think maybe they're a bit technology nervous about doing that. But I do have before you tonight, Council, the opportunity to raise the rates, and as a staff, I feel that this is a recommendation that Council should consider at this time. I'd be happy to answer any questions on behalf of the taxi drivers.
Thank you, Clerk Bearfelds. First comments or questions from councillors? Are we seeing anything, Clerk Bearfelds?
I'm not, no.
Okay, thank you. So I have a resolution and a bylaw for this matter. The resolution reads that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth adopts bylaw 122-2021, being a bylaw to amend Bylaw 166-2014, being a bylaw to provide for licensing, regulating, and governing owners and drivers of taxi cabs, motor, or other vehicles for hire for the transportation of passengers. And further, that the staff be directed to publish the new rates effective December 1st, 2021 in the local newspaper and on the municipal website and social media. Can I call on Councillor Duncan to be our mover for this one?
Yes, I'll move that motion.
Thank you. And Deputy Mayor Kellum, will you serve as our seconder?
And yes, I will second that motion. Thank you.
Thanks. Any discussion or debate on this matter? Yes, we're having that vote. Let's have that vote.
Sorry.
That was carried. Thank you. Now we have a bylaw to consider related to this. And the resolution reads as follows: that bylaw number 122-2021, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 166-2014, the taxi bylaw, be introduced, read, and considered read a first and second time, and be provisionally adopted. And that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Okay, so the clerk is amending this as we talk here. It should have the full reading. So let me try this again. That bylaw number 122-2021, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 166-2014, the taxi bylaw, be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be adopted. And that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I call on Councillor Johnston to be our mover for that?
Yes, I would so move.
Thank you. And Councillor Richardson, will you serve as our seconder?
I'll second that motion. Thank you.
Any discussion or debate? We're not seeing any indication of that, so let's have that vote. And that is unanimously carried. Thank you. And that moves us along to item 5.3, reports from the programs department. We don't have a report there this evening. Likewise, we move to item 5.4, the reports from our facilities department. And again, the reports haven't been provided to council for this evening's meeting. I know that both units are working hard on a whole range of things, including as the whole staff is on the budget for 2022. That allows us to move to item 5.5, reports from our finance department and treasury. As item 5.5.1, finance staff has brought forward for council review of accounts as of this day, November 15th, 2021. And note, as usual, some councillors have declared a potential pecuniary interest in this item and will absent themselves from consideration and voting. Are there any questions about this matter for staff? We're not seeing any, so I have a resolution for our consideration. It reads as follows: that the following summary of accounts be received by council for information. The total is $1,518,785.18. Councillor Richardson, can I call on you to move this one?
I will move that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Rothwell, will you serve as our second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate on this one? We're not seeing any, so let's have that vote. We're waiting on the software. Okay. So just hold on. Technical efforts are being made. There we go. Okay, so we are. Get everybody now? Okay, so with that, that is carried. Thank you. As item 5.2, or sorry, 5.5.2, council is provided with correspondence from parties noon pertaining to 2 elevated water bills from which they are requesting some relief. And I'm not sure who's speaking to this one. Okay, Ms. Hale, our treasurer and director of finance, is with us for comments. Welcome, Ms. Hale.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg, members of council. Council's in receipt of a request from our one of our customers with regard to water and sewer wastewater usage. And they're making a request, as mentioned, for an amendment or a reduction. And so bringing us to council this evening for direction on this matter.
Thank you, Ms. Hale. Do you have any questions or first comments, council? We see anything? So the staff has recommended a course of action. Oh, there is, okay. Councilor Andreessen, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Kasenberg. And perhaps this was coming up next through Ms. Hale, but what would be the typical type of approach to helping a citizen like this? What kinds of things have we done in the past? Thank you.
As mentioned in the report, we have not been providing any assistance for these sorts of situations in the past. That's one thing. I haven't got total documentation of that, but I can go back to a number of requests that we've had, and in all cases, council has not provided any relief. One of the issues that has come up over time was just where that relief would be, and at what point would that take place if there was someone filling a pool or that sort of thing that was deemed to be an exception. I'm sure in this case, this was just one of those unfortunate situations which we have had before, where a water softener had malfunctioned, and we certainly have had those from our customers in the past. And that seems to be the trickiest one. They typically can hear a tap drip or excuse me, or a toilet run, although they have been mysterious for customers to figure out as well. Especially when we first introduced meters, we had a lot of customers who were finding it tricky to figure out where the leaks were in their home. But anyway, in this particular case, we have a water softener that's caused a problem, and we've had that before, and council did not provide any relief at that time in prior situations.
Okay. Anything further from councillors, questions or first comments? I will say actually that as I read that story and thought about how I would feel in the circumstances, I was moved with a certain degree of compassion for the client. And so I don't find myself supporting the staff recommendation. I think that if the client was able to provide an appropriate attestation or information from the plumber pertaining to their loss of water, I think it could happen to any of us, and I'm rather uncomfortable with proceeding the way the staff has recommended, even though there is precedent in favor of the staff's recommendation. So I will vote against this when it comes to a vote. Any other comments? Councillor Richardson, did you want the floor?
That was a mistype. My apologies. And just to make a general comment, of course, this is an incredibly unfortunate event. But however, just given our precedent setting in the past, we have not offered relief for water customers that in a very unfortunate situation such as this, that I do believe that breaking precedents would not be in the best interests of anyone and the other ratepayers who would be held to account for even faulty equipment that they have. In the report, it does suggest the fact that notifications will be going out to make sure that equipment is in proper working order, just in case this happens, because it is bill per use and you do have a meter in your house. So it's incredibly unfortunate, but here we are. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Richardson, and certainly I agree certainly with the marketing of information to our client base pertaining to the care that's required and making sure their equipment is up to date. But I just find myself feeling differently than the precedent, perhaps. Anyone else? Councillor Andreessen?
Yes, thank you. Just another question, if you don't mind, through you, Mayor Kasenberg, to Ms. Hale. I'm just wondering if you're aware of any other municipalities that might, you know, provide some kind of break in what they've done in the past, or have other municipalities always, you know, just charge what the usage is? I just wondered if there was any, you know, any other information about what other municipalities do in these types of cases from your experience. Thank you.
Through you, Mayor Kasenberg, to Councillor Andreessen. We have definitely looked at it because of what was mentioned in terms of it's really unfortunate, and I've you know I have felt as well that, you know, had this occurred to myself, it would be quite a shock. And so we have reached out to other municipalities to see what they do. Now, I haven't done it lately, but in the past, we have found where some offer some kind of a discount based on prior month usage. Some offer a one-time issue like this to occur. And certainly as staff, we've talked about it because we'd love to be able to accommodate these unfortunate situations, but we've always struggled as to where the parameters would lay. And, you know, was it one time per person, one time per property, one time for piece of equipment? Had some other discussions with the manager of environmental services as well, and we're trying to look for some options because he certainly too would like to be able to offer some relief in these situations. But we do think going forward, we will be able to provide customers with that portal that they're able to actually have a quick look themselves. It will warn us, Becky Richardson actually does an analysis as often as we read the accounts just to see who is experiencing a difference in their usage. And she's quick to make a telephone call, as noted. It's harder to get a hold of people when we don't have a phone directory anymore that has everyone's number listed. We are fortunate, though, that we have a number of customers that have signed up for e-billing, and that's helped us be able to get a hold of our customers. But back to your initial question, in terms of what could be done, it's all over the map. And my concern is where those parameters, each situation's a little different. And I really do feel that there will be a solution going forward that folks can monitor their own situation. Of course, there's always going to be those that might not have access to the portal. And so that will, again, still be our initiative to track them down once we have an alert that lets us know that their usage is not in line with their usual usage. And we hope to follow through on that. But at this point in time, I feel that there's just so many variables that it's difficult to set those parameters. And that is, if council does want to go that way, I would like the opportunity to try to set some parameters before providing relief, so that we know from here going forward, this is what we're going to be offering, as opposed to one-offs. But certainly this is all within council's prerogative to do what you feel is the best solution at this time.
Anything further from council? Okay, I have a resolution that staff has prepared for us for consideration, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth received a letter from Tim and Tennille Noon, and that no amendment to their wastewater billing will be provided. I call on Councillor Seiler to be our mover for this one.
Yes, I'll move that.
Councillor Andreessen, will you be our seconder?
I don't think I can at this time. Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Anstedt, would you be our seconder?
Yes, I would second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate further? I don't think we're seeing anyone indicating a desire to discuss, so let's have that vote.
I'm in favor. My vote did not come up. Thank you. Oh, there it is. Sorry.
So that is carried 8-2. Right. We have no reports tonight from our Environmental Services Department as item 5.6 for this meeting. I do not wish to be rude. Thank you, Ms. Hale, for your comments and support tonight. For our last item, we turn to item 5.7 then. Reports from our Manager of Operations. We have no reports tonight from our Operations Department, but we know that they're hard at work and got a little bit of snow to start pondering the winter operations. All right, that brings us to item 5.8, reports from the Fire Department. For item 5.8.1, Council is invited to make determination about our intent for the former Moncton Fire Station building. This building has informally been used for storage and training purposes since it was replaced with a new building immediately next door to it in 2018. I will invite Fire Chief Jenny Pape to review the recommendation from her department for building retention and use for training purposes. Chief Pape, welcome, and welcome to your first report to Council.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Kaysenberg and Council. As you know, the New Moncton Fire Station opened in 2018, and since then, the former fire station has been used by the fire department for training and storage purposes. The upper floor of the facility has been used for scenario-based training. The apparatus bays have been used to store the reserve pumper and Moncton's antique pumper. The parking lot has been utilized for a variety of training evolutions, including auto extrication practice. With both the Ontario Fire College in Gravenhurst and the Emergency Services Training Centre in Blythe being permanently closed, the space has become a valuable enhancement to our training program. The ability to provide training opportunities locally reduces time and travel costs for the municipality and reduces the time that volunteer firefighters need to spend away from home and work commitments to get their training completed. There are some financial implications to retaining the facility. It has been maintained in very good condition, although the asphalt roof does need replacing. Both the roof replacement and the heat and hydro costs have been included in the proposed 2022 operating and capital budgets, respectively. It is a staff recommendation that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth retain the Moncton Fire Station for fire department training and storage purposes. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Chief Pape. Council, questions or first comments on this matter? We're not seeing anything, so I have a resolution to the effect that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth retain the former Moncton Fire Station for fire department training and storage purposes. Can I call on Councillor Andreessen to be our mover for this one?
I can make that motion, but I believe that one of the counselors has a question.
Oh. Sorry, it just popped up. Thank you. Councillor Enstedt, before we
Thanks-
go there.
Thanks, Mayor Kasenberg. Sorry, I wasn't quick enough getting it typed. I apologize. Thanks, Chief Pape, for your presentation. Just one question. It wasn't clear to me. This training, if we were to pass this resolution, would this be strictly for the North Perth Fire Department, or was this going to be outsourced and available to other volunteer fire departments as well? Thank you.
Through you, Mayor Kasenberg, to Councillor Anstead. At this point, it is just being used by North Perth Fire Department personnel. However, that said, perhaps in future, that may be an opportunity we could consider.
Okay, thank you.
Interesting question that Councillor Enstedt has asked, and it provokes for me a sort of second question, which is if we extended opportunities to our neighbors, might they contribute some funds to that for the purpose of its maintenance and for the insurance that might be triggered as a consequence of that effort?
The regional training center model is something that has been used across the province, especially now with the fire college closing. The Office of the Fire Marshal and Emergency Management is encouraging regional training centers. That said, we don't have a live fire training center there. What we use it for is predominantly RIT training, so rapid intervention team training, as well as obstacle courses with smoke conditions, but there isn't an actual live fire unit there. That said, that training is valuable to all fire departments, and that may be an opportunity for us to generate revenue in future.
Thank you. I see a hand being extended in the near future. I don't know, but maybe Councillor Anstedt can nod his head too. I think he sees probably the same opportunity. All right, let's go back to the resolution then, if I might. It wasn't moved and seconded yet, but I'll read it again just for our clarification that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth retain the former Moncton Fire Station for fire department training and storage purposes. Councillor Andreessen, can I call on you to be our mover for that?
Yes, I'll make that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Behrens, will you serve as our seconder for that?
Yes, I would gladly second that motion.
Thanks. All right. Any discussion or debate? We're not seeing any, so let's have that vote. And is Councillor Johnston still with us, or has he exited at this point? So we're going to mark Councillor Johnston absent at this point. He did advise he would leave at this hour, and we'll call that carried. Thank you very much. We have ourselves a training place for our fire department. That's exciting. All right, that brings us to thank you, Chief Pape. Glad for your first report. It was a meaningful one. Now let's move to item 6. For item 6.1, councillors, are there any reports you would like to ask of staff or of our committees at this time? The usual means of drawing the chair's attention is recommended. All right, we're not seeing any indication there. For item 7, we have received no items of correspondence which require action on our part. That brings us to item 8 on our agenda, which allows council to consider bylaws. We have one bylaw matter tonight. Council is invited to adjust the memberships of our various boards and committees by bylaw. Are there any questions about this matter for the clerk before we consider this bylaw? We're not seeing any, so let me read the bylaw resolution here. The bylaw number 123-2021 being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 161-2018. Being a bylaw to appoint persons, including council members, to various boards, committees, and associations, be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed. Let the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I call on Councillor Duncan to be our mover for this one?
So moved.
Thank you. And Deputy Mayor Callum, will you
And
serve as
yes,
seconder?
yes, I'll second that motion. Thank you.
Thanks. Any discussion or debate on that one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. And let me take the opportunity to thank those who have withdrawn from those boards and committees for their service. We are now at item 9 on our agenda. Are there any councillors wishing leave to give notice of motion this evening? We're not seeing anything, so that allows us to move to item 10 on our agenda. For item 10.1, are there any announcements that would be of benefit to our community or that reflect well on North Perth at this time? Again, the usual method, both staff and councillors invited to participate at this point. And we're not seeing anything, I believe. I noticed today, Council, first call for participation in the Coldest Night of the Year fundraising event from the United Way for 2022. That will be in deep February, but more information I'm sure will follow through various channels. Anything further on 10.1, Clerk Burfels, that you're seeing? Okay, that brings us to agenda item number 11. We have one matter to be considered in a closed session of council. I'm going to read the resolution which explains and enables our action to enter into closed session. The resolution is as follows: that this committee proceed in camera at 8:37 p.m. to address a matter pertaining to advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose regarding the Line 81 bridge project. And I call on Councillor Richardson to be our mover for this one.
I will move that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Rothwell, will you serve as our second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate? We're not seeing any, so let's have that vote. And that is carried. Council, at this time, we will enter closed session momentarily. What we need to do is deal with our AV and broadcasting cleanup here. So just give a few moments to adjust. I'm going to suggest a very quick break, maybe 5 minutes bio break at this point. So let's return at 8:45 for the sake of argument, and we'll get our AV ducks in the line in between then. Any who have not been invited to remain for the closed session should exit the WebEx call at this time. And we'll be back in 5 minutes. I'm going to ask our trustee, Councillor Richardson, to check YouTube to see if we're back and functional at that source.
Hold, please. Waiting for loop.
Okay, we're online. Thank you. We're back to our regular open council meeting at this point. That does bring us to item 12 on our agenda, and at this time we have nothing to report from the results of our closed session meeting of council. Council has mandated good practice acts near the end of its meeting agenda to confirm all of its action and business through what is known as the Confirmatory Bylaw. I have a draft of that, which reads as follows: that bylaw number 125-2021, being a bylaw to confirm generally previous actions of the council of the municipality of North Perth, be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I call on Councillor Duncan to be a mover for this one?
So moved.
Thank you. And Councillor Richardson, will you serve as our seconder?
I will second that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And I'm looking for 7 votes. 8, no, 6 votes, right? 6. So Councillor Rothwell, what say you? Councillor Rothwell, are you with us? Councillor Rothwell, last opportunity on this vote. Okay, we believe that Councillor Rothwell is absent, perhaps due to technology problems. So we're going to call that one carried with 5 votes of council and 4 who are either abstaining for pecuniary interest reasons or who are absent. Thank you. So let's move forward then. Councillors, we have completed the deliberations and taken action on the business that was put before us this evening. I have a motion to adjourn, which reads as follows: that the council meeting adjourns at 9:12 p.m. to meet again for general council business on Monday, December 6th, 2021 at 7 p.m. And I do have announcements, so don't rush off because the clerk reminds me about special meetings. But the motion to adjourn is as follows. Can I call on Councillor Seiler to be our mover for this one? Councillor Seiler? Did we lose Councillor Seiler as well? Councillor Seiler?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. There we go. And Councillor Andreessen, will you serve as our seconder for this one?
Yes, I'll second the motion.
Thank you. It is not debatable, so let's have that vote.
I'm in favor.
Thank you, Councillor Anstead. We're just sort of cleaning that up here. Okay, so Councillor Anstead is in favor, and we know that Councillor Johnston is absent, and we believe Councillor Rothwell, are you with us? So we don't believe Councillor Rothwell is with us. We're going to call that carried with 8 votes. Council, our meeting will be adjourned after my one announcement that the clerk has reminded me of, which is that we do have special meetings next week. The first is on the 22nd. This is a special meeting about human resources at 7 p.m. And the second is on the Wednesday, the 24th. That is a budget committee meeting. That's also at 7 p.m. We will hold our regular next meeting of council using these technologies on Monday, December 6th, 2021. And now I'm going to grab the gavel. bang it and say this meeting is adjourned. Thank you for a good meeting, Council. Good night, good week.
Good night, everyone.